what it'd be. That's going to put this in.
Yep. Only kinda.
Hi, I'm Congressman George Whitesides. Thank you so much for being here. We also have some other congresspeople who are here, as well as some folks who have television shows or YouTube shows who try to put a spotlight on awareness is so important.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They really want to meet you. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. I don't mind. Let's go this way. Did we get you enough water? Caroline Tucker with NBC Level 50. What is this about?
You want one? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Doing a mic check for everybody. If anybody wants one, checking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yep. I'm just doing a mic check for everybody.
Is it tapped in, or is it just?
No,
Okay.
just a separate microphone.
It's not tapped into that.
There is that's no longer a tap.
Okay.
It is now only power. So it's just everyone's personal mics are up here, and I just have my personal mic right here.
That'll get enough. That'll get it.
Oh, plenty. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So here's what he's doing. He's gonna go handheld and roam around like
Uh-huh.
now. Are you rolling?
And now.
Just in case. And then when the press conference starts, he'll go on a tripod, long lens. But I'm also encouraging him, like after, to like go get, little verite, small pocket.
Absolutely, absolutely. Checking 1, 2, 3. Okay, good.
We're ready. We need to make sure that we're giving law enforcement the resources that they need to go after the scale of this problem. We need to go after violent crimes in our country. So everyone come together, just like these people, right? Because we're not going to be able to solve it alone.
What legislative avenues do you have?
So we're pushing forward a bill that would establish a scam prevention center. The White House does not yet have a center for you scams in this country. That is a crazy thing. So that is something that we're going to introduce here today. A bill that would establish a foundation that looks better to scams. But there are a wide range of solutions established by Stop the Scams Caucus. That many of the folks from the caucus that are here today, you'll hear from folks who talk a little bit about tax efforts to track story of folks who take all the money out of their 401ks, they transfer it to scammers, so they have no money left, and then they are taxed on, the amounts that they've taken for them. There's no end to that. Should this be a first? I'm gonna get started. Should we get started? All right. Okay. Thank you for being the chair. Thank you for being the chair. Oh. Okay, let's get going.
Well, if you're here,
There's a problem.
a good-looking crowd. How are those nails?
They want me to hold. You guys should all come in the shot if you want. I'm short, so thanks for being here. Okay. So I think. Okay. Thank you very much.
Can you just make sure that the shot is okay?
Mackenzie would mind holding that for us. Thank you very much. Is that good? Do you want to come up a little bit?
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
you guys should all come up so people can see your things and you're also in the shot. Yeah. Okay. That's good? Okay. All right. Can we get started? Do we want them down the other side? Okay. Make sure. Okay. All right. Why don't we get started? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today on National Scam Survivor Day. I want to recognize Congressman Shreve, Nunn, Amo, and Mackenzie from the Stop Scams Caucus. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Houchin, and we have Congressman Tran. Thank you all for being here, as well as Art and Ashton, hosts of Fox Nation's Scammed Getting Even show, as well as YouTuber Kit Boga. We're also lucky to be joined by Judith Boivin, who is bravely sharing her personal experience with scams to bring attention to this pervasive problem. We're all here to discuss the growing threat that is scams. Last month, the FBI estimated that Americans lost a record $21 billion to scams in 2025. $21 billion. And that number may be a dramatic underestimate because of the shame associated with reporting scams. Scammers who are increasingly using technology, AI, and crypto to trick unsuspecting victims often make off with hundreds of thousands of dollars from the most vulnerable among us, seniors, veterans, and at an increasing rate, children. My own parents, now in their 80s, have repeatedly been on the receiving end of a variety of schemes designed to cheat them out of their savings. That's why I was so glad to find the Stop Scams Caucus when I got to Congress, a group of bipartisan members determined to make progress on this horrific problem. And why I was so excited to discover the great creators joining us here today who have devoted themselves to cracking down on scams. I hope it's not a surprise to anyone to learn that the government can move a little slow sometimes. We need great advocates like the ones here today to help move the ball forward. And we all need to do our part in Congress to support them in that work. Right now, there is no singular office in the federal government designed to take on scams and fraud. Earlier this year, I introduced a bill to establish a national fraud and scam prevention office in the White House so that we could spearhead a federal response to target scammers using every tool at our disposal. But as much as we need to hold scammers accountable, we also need to raise awareness of how easily these scams can happen to you or someone you love. That's why my office and other offices ran a briefing for congressional staff earlier today about how to detect and protect yourself from scams. We've also distributed scam prevention resources to congressional offices here in Washington and their teams back home. The more we can educate the American people on what scams look like, the more likely they'll be able to recognize it and stop a scam before it occurs. We're so grateful for people like Judith who have shared their stories in the hopes that others will know what to look for. I also want to thank Ashton and Art of Trilogy and Kit Boga again for their work tackling the bad actors that try to take advantage of our most vulnerable in this country. They are filling gaps that are so desperately needed in our society today. Simply put, we must all do our part to fight back. That means passing actual laws at the federal level and supporting the work that these creators do every day. So thank you, everyone, and for your work on this issue. And I'll now invite Judith to share her story. Judith, is that okay?
Yeah, I guess it's okay. Well, I was scammed in between September 23rd of 23 and January 24 of 24. And it was a FBI imposter scam that started through the police, Rockville police. And I was being accused of money laundering because my Social Security number was being used by the scammers that were trafficking drug money. And although I said, well, that's impossible, they said, well, there's an active case at the FBI and we're going to transfer your call to the FBI. And as all this is happening while I'm in the car dropping my husband at a medical appointment, and because the identities on my video screen And then I Googled it on my phone, and the phone numbers and the names they were using checked out on Google. And when I spoke with the FBI, they eventually, after telling me all the horrors of fentanyl trafficking and children dying and all the negative things that you can imagine, they just a minute. They told me that they could use me as an asset, and would I be willing to be one? And I said, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, we'll call you, and what we can do is, if we get all of your money out of your Social Security number, we'll put it in the vault at the courthouse in D.C., and you will be able to get that back, and you will have your Social Security number changed. Now, it took place over several phone calls, not all in one, but I agreed to the asset. I agreed to have the code number, or the code word that we had to use, and I truly believed that I was involved with a real live case. And from that point, I thought, oh, well, that would be good. My background is in nursing. I'm an RN. I'm a clinical social worker, psychotherapist. I have always had doing the best for others as part of my lifestyle. But they knew all that. They saw they found my resume on the LinkedIn. When I moved to Maryland, I had to get relicensed, and so I had everything up on LinkedIn. They knew where I'd lived, where I'd worked, in and out of the country. It was amazing. But I thought, well, FBI could know all that, so what? And anyhow, it proceeded from there. Every day I got a phone call at 9 and 5 from this imposter who was impostoring the director of cybersecurity at the DC office. He would throw in little comments about what was going on at the Capitol and what dignitaries were visiting and how much IT work he had to do to make everything safe. And so the encouragement never stopped in helping me to believe that this was authentic. And then the scheme of getting my money, I had to get it transferred from my bank and from my financial institution in Wisconsin to Maryland, and I had to get it in cash. We couldn't just transfer management funds and so on. And so I ended up having to package up $20,000 bundles of money, of cash, and then wrap it in a certain fashion, marking the case number and the vault number on it. And I would get coordinates where to meet one of the FBI team, and they would send me coordinates, and I would drive to the coordination place, and I would drop the money in the back seat of the passenger side of the vehicle. And there was never to be any conversation, and the scammer was always on the phone. And then the hardest part for me was very intense with getting my money. Once I got it to Maryland, that was a real shit show. Then I had to go to these banks, 4 different places in my area where I had to open accounts, and I had to take the monies and get them deposited in the banks in order to be able to withdraw them in cash and make these $20,000 bundles. And then I ended up having to do 5 cashier's checks for a couple of $100,000. And so by the time the money was all out of my Social Security name, it was December 15th, and the scammer was going to leave to go to a wedding in Italy for one of his colleagues from the what do you call it, FBI Academy. And so there were always these twists that came in to verify the authenticity. And when he got back, he was coming back January 15th after Martin Luther King Day, and then we would have a court hearing and my money would be returned. And that money being returned was mentioned every phone call to reinforce the trust. And it succeeded. So I learned about my scam. The days we were going to have a court hearing, supposedly it was going to be before he left, but the judge was too busy. There were too many things on the agenda, and so that's why it was going to be scheduled after he returned. And in late January 19th it was, I got a call from the OAG's office in Baltimore, and he had received an email from Morgan Stanley about my account being emptied. And he said, it's been a scam. End of story. I asked him purposely why. I said, well, and when did you get the email? October 31st. And this was January. All of my money went out during November 15th to December 15th. So it could have been interrupted had there been a system in place where something like a person who had a 30-year account at a financial institution who was already in her late 70s, because I was 79 when this happened, and there could have been a system where this email would not have been left in a pile of papers or in the internet for so long. And the legislation that we had signed on Tuesday with Governor Westmore was one that is enforcing a newer bill, whereas the financial companies, when they do suspect, and they did suspect, and they did lock my account for 10 days, but they never did anything except lock my account and keep asking me the same question. And now they could, in fact, keep it locked and investigate and contact other law enforcement in order to look at it more closely, because the pattern of my withdrawals was so unusual. But at any rate, I'm hoping that through our talking about what has happened to myself and so many thousands of others, that we'll be able to educate people about how subtle these are. And no one is exempt. No one. And even with our speaking, we get scammed, or scam calls, scam notices, scam messages. Now we're smart enough to understand all the ins and outs, but the new scams are coming out every day. One of the more recent ones that's kind of weirdo is invites. You get an email invite to a friend you know, somebody you graduated with, somebody that you have in your network, and they invite you to a party. And if you do respond, you're already caught in the snag of a scam. And it's just really unbelievable. I can't understand why the government has been so naive to recognize the billions that are being lost in this area alone. What I'm hoping for is the next time we go out with the KSS group, the Keep Seniors Safe from Montgomery County Police, that we'll be able to give the exact data of the millions of dollars that have been stolen through these scams in our very, very area. So, but for the most part, nobody knows really what a scam is until you've been scammed. But thank everybody, all of you, for even listening to all this and going and making efforts.
Thank you so much for telling your story. So Zach Nunley. Congressman Nunn, I think you're next if that's...
No, thank you very much. Well, I want to appreciate everybody who has been up here, not only being a co-partner with the Scams Caucus, but for sharing that story. Because this is the reality. It takes a lot of bravery to help the next person so they don't become a victim. We are very thankful for this. Scams affects not Republicans or Democrats, it affects every American. And the reality is right now in my home state of Iowa, we have a loss of $100 million due to scams. And that was just last year. $20 billion and more is going out the door. And it's doing it by folks who have worked hard their entire life, watching their entire savings bled out. Whether it's domestically, whether it's operations in Southeast Asia, or whether it's foreign intelligence services that are soliciting these funds and then spending that money against the very United States. Financial fraud is no longer a petty crime. It is the second strongest crime that impacts people right here in the United States, and it's creating real damage to folks across the country. I'll share the story of a man from Iowa who lost $164,000 to something called a pig butchering scheme. This is where you fatten up your target to then take them to slaughter. And what they did is they stole everything that he needed to be able to survive, despite the fact that he had served his country bravely. Another man from my district fell victim to a romance scheme where he thought he was in a dedicated relationship with someone that he wanted to be his partner, only to find out that that individual was in a slave labor camp in Southeast Asia after hundreds of thousands of dollars were bled out of his bank account. These stories, these are the reasons that we are here. As we move forward, the Stop the Scam Caucus that we represent is looking for real solutions that can hold these guys accountable. The scammers are stealing from Americans at every level, and our most vulnerable Americans are on the front line of being victims, but we can make them also the strongest safeguard to be able to prevent this going forward. That's why the legislation that we just passed yesterday in financial services, overwhelming, 53-0, Republicans and Democrats working together, is called the GUARD Act. What the GUARD Act intends to do through its bipartisan legislation is to work with our local law enforcement so that when a scammer attacks, we can both inoculate others while at the same time leveraging our best capabilities at the federal level. Those of the intelligence community, those of the Department of Justice, Treasury, as well as what's happening on the private sector to help our local law enforcement, our sheriffs, our hometown banks and lenders, to make sure that this story isn't a story that continues long into perpetuity. The GUARD Act is now headed to the House floor for a vote, and I'm glad to say that because of this caucus, we've already gained momentum in the Senate and have a real chance of getting this to the President's desk in the weeks ahead. My friend, Senator Katie Britt, is leading the charge in the Senate, and together, we're leading the charge here in the House. I believe not only do we pass this bill, but we are taking a massive step forward in the fight against fraud. On National Scam Survivors Day, we're going to do all that we can to stop the hundreds of millions of dollars stolen from Iowans in my state, but more importantly, the $20 billion plus stolen from Americans. And we're going to make sure that Congress is doing its job not only to protect Americans, but to join the fight to end this crime both domestically and our capabilities to fight overseas to hold these actors accountable. Thank you very much for the entire team for bringing this forward. And with that, I want to bring up Gabe, who has been just an incredible leader out of Rhode Island. Gabe, brother, thank you.
Well, first off, Judith, I want to thank you for your courage. And I have a special place in my heart for nurses. It happens to be National Nurses Week, and so I celebrate you for what you've done to care for people both in Wisconsin and in Maryland. So thank you, Judith, for that. And I'm so thrilled to be here because this is something we should rally around together. Democrats, Republicans, standing together, because I got to tell you a secret. The scammers don't care what your party affiliation is. They want to steal your money, they want to exploit your trust, and they oftentimes want to do very bad things on the other end with what they steal. And it is so important that we stand here on this day to recognize those who have survived incidents of scams, but that we do everything we can to put out a PSA around our country to have people protect themselves while Congress works very hard alongside members in the Stop Scams Caucus to find legislative solutions to this epidemic. It is growing, over $20 billion. And I believe that's an understatement because there's so much shame and fear associated with the loss that comes. And I tell people, don't be ashamed. Everybody has those text messages in their phone. Everybody is getting those invites, electronic invites. Everybody is facing some bad actor on the other end, whether they are domestic or abroad, who wants to steal your money. And we can't talk about affordability in this country if we can't have people keep the money that they've earned, hard-earned money. And so I think about my constituents. There's a Rhode Islander who was scammed out of thousands of dollars after a text he received pretending to be his bank. Someone who called into our office and said, "Can you help?" That's work that we have to respond to. We can't merely let this problem go unaddressed. And so this Scam Survivors Day is about standing with people. That's the most essential work that we have as members of Congress, standing for our constituents, standing with Americans. And these schemes, as you've heard, are more and more sophisticated. We are all vulnerable. Text, calls, cryptos, impersonation, romance. You know, we all have big hearts. And sometimes we are susceptible to those who are appealing to our emotions. And so raising awareness is essential, but legislative action needs to follow. And so I am so grateful to be one of the bipartisan co-chairs of this caucus, along with Representative Shreve, Representative Nunn, and Representative Raskin, because we need coordinated action. And that's why I introduced the Stop Scams Against Seniors Act alongside Representative Shreve to bring together state and federal agencies to investigate and prosecute scams targeting our seniors. And our seniors who have worked so hard, who have made this country what it is, should not be vulnerable, should not be left exposed. And we have to have mechanisms to coordinate, to respond, to prosecute, and make sure that there are consequences for addressing this big problem. And then, of course, the interagency coordination. We got a lot of 3- and 4-letter agencies that are doing important work, but they got to talk to each other, especially on the wrongs of scams. And preparing and responding has to be a team project, has to be a group effort. That's what this caucus represents. And so together, we're going to get this work done. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm so thrilled to hear Representative Nunn talk about progress with the GUARD Act, and we've got more work to do to ensure that we're coordinating. But Congress is supposed to respond to the needs of the American people. And because of the leadership of my colleagues behind me and across the Congress, we will do just that and stop the scammers in their tracks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my great colleague and fellow co-chair, Representative Jefferson Shreve.
Thank you, folks. I was happy to lead on the Stop Scams Caucus with my colleagues. One of the takeaways is this isn't just bipartisan, this is nonpartisan. My constituents look like Gabe's constituents, look like Zach's constituents. I'm from a red state. Gabe's from a blue district. This is a great big problem. It's an all of society problem. It takes an all of government approach toward turning the tide back on this problem. And today, and I appreciate your attention to this, but today is focused on highlighting the victims and encouraging folks like Judith, who could come out of my district or any of our districts, to bring their stories forward, to encourage them to do it timely, because your money was dissected away over the course of weeks. Look, if we can have an all-of-government approach to addressing this problem and get DOJ and Treasury and other arms of our government, state, federal, and local, working on this problem, we can protect some of that money before it goes out the door, and we can educate our constituents, our citizens, so they don't fall victim to these ever more sophisticated scams. The voice scams, the SIM card farms that are going to make you think you're talking to a friend or someone in your county sheriff department as it comes up on your cell phone are more menacing today than they were in 2023 when Judith was victimized. And the video scams that are coming out are going to make it almost impossible for people to discern friend and family from foe. I got involved in this from my Foreign Affairs Committee assignment because these industrial-sized scam centers are anchored in Southeast Asia, in parts of our country where they are pulling our money, our citizens' monies, and out and overseas, and there are victims on the other side of it because so many of the people working in these scam centers are coerced labor, human trafficked, and so we've got victims around the globe on this. We got to do our thing. We've got to work together and turn the tide on this problem. I appreciate your attention to this today. Judith, thank you. It's hard to share this, but because it's hard to share these stories, the problem is so underreported. 20 billion, the FTC has telegraphed that this could be in 2025 up to $250 billion in scams. We got to get together. We got to fight this. We got to turn this back. Thank you very much.
Let me just say thank you again to the extraordinary leadership of the co-chairs, Congressman Shreve, Congressman Amo, Congressman Nunn, and Congressman Raskin, who may come. It is my pleasure now to introduce Congressman McKenzie, who's going to speak as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Congressman Ryan McKenzie from Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District. I appreciate all of you being here today because the challenge of scams is something that can affect everybody across the country. We have heard from Judith, and we appreciate you sharing your story because scams target the most vulnerable, but they can affect anybody in our local communities. As a state representative for many years, I saw and heard the stories of constituents coming into our office and how they had fell prey to all of these different scams. The different options are financial, they prey on your trust, your vulnerabilities, your sensibilities about your family, your loved ones, and then they act in a way that you can never get that financial security back. You can never get that trust back. And so we as Congress have stepped up in a bipartisan way to address this issue. We have formed the Stopping Scams Caucus, and now you're seeing legislation being rolled out in so many different areas to actually address this issue. We know that this needs to be addressed from a number of different ways, not only in different government senses, whether it's the Treasury Department, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, or others, but also with interactions with the private sector. Telecom companies, financial institutions, and tech companies all play a role in this. And then finally, there is an educational component. Because when you tell people about these challenges, when you tell them about scams like the one Judith faced, they're always evolving, but they always have similar commonalities to them. And if you can identify these scams at the forefront, you can actually stop them and you can stop people from being scammed in the first place. But ultimately, we've heard $20 billion is going out the door to scams. Some people say it's even higher. We've seen estimates as high as $100 billion a year. Millions of dollars are leaving our community in the Lehigh Valley and Poconos as a flood of scams, frauds, and attempts abuse the most vulnerable. So here on Scam Victims Day, we have heard a number of the different proposals out there. I'm also a co-sponsor of legislation, the bipartisan Stop Scams Against Seniors Act. This is common sense legislation that we would like to see enacted to help our seniors. There's other legislation that helps veterans, but again, these types of scams affect everybody in our local community. And as has been mentioned by Jefferson Shreve, my colleague on the Foreign Affairs Committee, so often these scams originate overseas. And the scam actors are now making a professional operation out of this, on these scam farms that need to be cracked down. They need to be shut down so that we can protect our American citizens. So I would like everybody to take away the severity of the scams that are affecting Americans all across the country, the billions of dollars that's going out the door, but also the fact that Congress is stepping up, aware of the issue, addressing it, and actually trying to stop the scams from ever starting and affecting the American citizen. So I want to thank everybody for their attention today, and also for victims like Judith for stepping up to share their story so that another person is not victimized in this country because of a scam. Thank you again.
And we're now very pleased to have Congresswoman Houchin. Over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today to recognize National Scam Survivor Day. As many have said before me, today is about shining a light on a growing crisis that's impacting millions of Americans across the country. Every day, hardworking families, seniors, vulnerable Americans are being targeted by increasingly sophisticated scams designed to steal their savings, their personal information, and their financial security. Across the country, more than 50 million Americans have suffered monetary losses due to online scams. These are real people who worked hard, saved responsibly, and unfortunately trusted the wrong person or platform. And scammers are constantly adapting. They're using artificial intelligence, social media, spoofed phone numbers, fake websites, and impersonation tactics to target Americans in ways we've never seen before. And unfortunately, many victims are left without clear support after the damage has been done. That's why I introduced the Strategic Task Force on Scam Prevention Act, a bipartisan piece of legislation focused on bringing the federal government, law enforcement, and private sector together to better prevent, detect, and disrupt these scams before Americans become victims. This legislation directs the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission to convene an interagency task force to develop comprehensive national scam prevention strategies. This will include improving consumer education, strengthening coordination with international partners, and supporting scam victims. This effort brings banks, tech companies, social media platforms, state attorneys general, law enforcement, and all of the above to the table to ensure the response is coordinated. Every day, scammers find new ways to target Americans, especially seniors and families who can least afford it. We have a responsibility to make sure our laws and our institutions are keeping pace with the threats people face. This day is about shining a light on the victims and looking forward as we craft legislation to protect consumers, strengthen accountability, and make sure bad actors cannot continue to exploit Americans without consequence. I'm proud to lead this effort with my colleagues behind me and the rest of the members of the Stop Scams Caucus. I want to thank all of our partners, our advocates, and survivors who continue to raise awareness on this issue and push for action. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We now are so lucky to have three creators who have done more than almost anyone to cast a spotlight on the crisis of scams that is sweeping our country. First, we will have Ashton Bingham and Art Kulik. They are the founders of Trilogy Media. They are also the hosts and creators of the Fox show Scammed Getting Even, and we're so lucky to have them here in Washington, D.C. To bring their perspective to the scam crisis. So Ashton, Art, over to you.
Thank you so much. This was the first time hearing Judith's story, and I feel like I'm reading a textbook. This is something we've seen every single day, and this did not have to happen. What really hurts is hearing all of the steps you went through that were opportunities for that to be stopped. Your bank, the cashier's checks, the cash in the vehicle, this is stuff we see as a playbook every single day, and this did not have to happen. We've spent the better part of 10 years literally chasing these scammers down, confronting them face to face, knocking on doors, gathering evidence, and we have no pipeline to deliver that evidence to the people that have the power to actually do something about it. And that gap in the system is costing Americans everything. We have footage, we have addresses, we have phone numbers, we have testimonies, we've had our lives threatened, we've had bounties put on our heads in other countries, we've gone through everything to get this information and we have nowhere to put it. Over 200 terabytes of information and footage and documentation over a decade of exactly how these scammers operate and exactly where they are, but nowhere to put that information. We need a pipeline, we need a place to send that information to people that can actually do something about it. Thankfully, it's finally being taken seriously. And thank you so much to the congressman here for making this caucus happen, because this is so important, and it's more important than it's ever been, especially with the rise of AI. So all we're asking is to let us in. Let us show you what we have so you can actually do something about it.
Thank you so much. Yes, everything that my business partner Ashton said, 100%. I would love to say thank you to every single person who made this happen. This is something that we, as Trilogy Media, as our fellow scam baiters, we've been in this industry for 10 years, a decade. We've seen everything. Evolution of you paying your taxes via gift cards to right now having AI, your mom receiving a phone call. You see your mom who's saying that something happened to her child and you need to send money immediately. I love what previous congressman said, that there is no, it's like basketball team. You cannot win your championship without every single person doing their job. And I feel like this is the problem. We're doing our stuff, Congress doing other stuff, law enforcement doing their stuff. We need to come together as a nation. We need to come together as a one solid team. We need a solution. Every single scam has origin. Tech support scam, Microsoft, all this pop-up, fake stuff that you have on your computer originates from India. Why don't we address that stuff, that there are fake call centers bombarding our citizens every single day, 24/7? We went to India. They did put bounty on our head. We shut down 3 call centers together with other fellow scam baiters. We went to Nigeria. That's where Roman scams, African scammers gonna get in your relationship. You just lost your wife, your husband, and you became lonely. You wanna go date. Our system, it's like we're so behind of decades, and scammers just enjoying how many people not only losing houses, cashing out 401k at early age, and people taking their lives. There is a stigma that scam, it's only for elderly people. Absolutely not. There is a scam for every single one of us. You go to university, you apply for a job, stimulus check from the government, that's gonna scam you. You're going dating, there is a sextortion scams for teenagers. There is a scam for every single person. But how can we fight this enemy if we know nothing about it? No tactics, we know nothing. We know a couple things, and we came to share that couple of things. And thank you so much, guys, for having us, that giving us opportunity to finally say, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, this is where all these bad people or these criminals are. Let's do something about together as a nation, as a society, and protect our citizens. Next person who is coming is our fellow scam baiter, Kid Boga.
And Kid, let me just say, first of all, thank you to Ash and Art. Thank you so much for your leadership. And we now have an amazing YouTuber and streamer and engineer, I would say, and technologist, Kit Boga, who has millions of followers across a range of different platforms, and we look forward to your perspective.
Thank you. Hey guys, I'm Kit Boga. If you don't know me, I, like Ashen, I've spent about 10 years talking to scammers. I often change my voice and go through different technological pursuits to try to convince them that I'm the perfect target. I've personally done over 20,000 phone calls to these criminals, and I've garnered, I want to say, almost 1 billion views on social media. Unfortunately, I'm here to say that education alone is not enough. And so I think about, like, how did we get here? What's going on? And I know, probably just like you guys, the #1 email that I get is not, Kit, I love your YouTube videos, can I have your autograph? The #1 email that I get is, please help, I've lost everything. I went to the police, I went to the bank, I filed the IC3.gov report, I've done everything I can, and now their last ditch effort is to reach out to some YouTubers. And sometimes, although I would say we're experts, I think there's a really big problem when there are millions of Americans who are losing every last penny, and their last ditch effort is to reach out to a YouTuber. Now, the reality is, where we're at today is there are criminal enterprises that are operating, that are not just stealing the billions of dollars, but reinvesting those billions of dollars into specifically targeting Americans. They're using things like social media to run ads. They're using text messages. Every single day, they are often hunting us and targeting us specifically to steal everything. And when I look at what's going on and everything I've seen over the past 10 years, I often feel like we are so far behind. And I hope that through private partner working together, through government working together, through things like this Stop Scam Caucus, through partnerships with innovative technologies and law enforcement, that next year we're going to be here. And instead of saying that we're so far behind, that we're hemorrhaging money outside of the US, that we'll be able to say that we're ahead and that we're leading the charge against defending people in the United States. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. We have time for a few questions. If anyone has them, you guys can come over here or whatever. I'm sure they're more interested in hearing from you all than me. So one or two questions, okay. Co-sponsors? It varies on the bill. The GUARD Act has the most co-sponsors right now. I don't know the exact number, but we can get that for you. And then other bills have less. But some of them have dozens of co-sponsors, so that's good. Any other questions from folks? Okay, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Do you think we could get a picture in front of the Capitol with you guys? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's more than okay.